most of their careers, and I think that adds this level of enjoyment to the game. Like, Rich finally gets to play the carry heroes instead of just the guy who's macroing in top lane, right? And I think it does show in how aggressive they're able to set up these fights. That arrow right outside the boss pit, super crisp execution.
More than just that arrow, I would argue the one on 10s on bottom, they were willing to use that just on a Tyrael right in front of them, not wasting the legitimately less than 25% of the level advantage that they had down below. They just pulled the trigger so quick. Ballistix was unable to keep up. Of game number 2, KSV sending us to Battlefield of Eternity. No surprise to see that one selected from them.
Well, Wolf said who's going to be managing that macro on top. Well, there won't be anybody managing that macro on top because Battlefield of Eternity is our choice. The fact that Ballistix is prioritizing that first pick, they have to anticipate that BOE would probably be near or at the top of that list when it comes to Battleground selections for KSV. So I think this draft could get interesting. And Dread, last game we saw, because it was first pick for KSV, this time it's going to be over to Ballistix. We saw a first ban on Uther. Maybe some similar mind games, some structures around our meta coming into this game?
I think that's very fair to, kind of assume that these drafts are going to get a little bit weirder than the cookie cutter that it feels like we agreed upon over the first 2 days.
Yeah, I feel like when you look at that last draft too, with the Malfurion being picked first,
yeah,
it opened a lot of doors for KSV Black. There's some heroes in the meta where when you first pick them, it just kind of leaves you with a lot of different options as to what you want to do. And it seems like Ballistix, they knew was going to not do the thing that they showed in regular season, the Tracer Tyrael in response, and that they were going to go down the Genji path. So the Uther ban is just like one step ahead of that mindset, saying, okay, you're going to pick Genji, even though you have Sanctification, that's limited, and how much you can really empower these Dragon Blades. And I like that kind of concept here for KSV Black, just basically removing Rhaegar as well to limit the healing and to say, okay, Genji's a strong hero, you've got a fantastic Genji player, but you're still limited by your support. You're limited by the Stukov they had to go with in this case.
Well, here we go as we head into game number 2. And we are going to get the Maiev ban. Ballistix saying that they do not want to play it, don't want to put the onus of ban on them and then having to deny it. We see the Uther ban again. Ballistix, Malfurion. Is it first pick worthy?
Or do you go with the Genji, stick to the norm? I can't help but feel like after that last game and the dominance KSV showed, maybe see that kind of adjustment, but this is Ballistix, right? They have some questions that they have to answer when looking at SE's hero pool. Luckily, on Battlefield of Eternity, Hanzo does stand out a little bit higher.
I feel like you could even first pick Hanzo here if you're Ballistix. And this has been a trend for Ballistix throughout this tournament and really the very end of HGC Korea is just to prioritize Genji above all else. And I think that's why KSV Black is spanning the Uther. They're saying, okay, if you're just going to first pick Genji, we're going to take away the best pairing support you're ever going to have with him already, and they are still picking the Genji. So I think KSV Black is feeling very comfortable right now.
I feel like this is going to be a very bold move in this rotation for KSV, not in the diversity, but if they go with the Mouth Tracer of the standard, what we've seen, right? But even though they avoided that in the last game, even was an option. Battlefield of Eternity, we know to be more of a Tracer-esque map. If they neglect that here, I feel like it's heavy indicator of lack of interest within that duo combo. Maybe that the Tracer is a bit, I don't want to use the word overhyped, but they have a different interpretation of what selection of the draft it falls into.
I think we've definitely learned that by, again, the skip here, just going straight into the garage.
But I think it comes back to the point where we saw the draft priority around Tracer going into day 2, essentially. And now I think it goes back to a point Wolf made when we started this series of we're not seeing the Tracer Tyrael pairing either. So with Tyrael Genji being a possible counter towards that Tracer, she's a little less appealing. And KSV all of a sudden is really high on this Garrosh hype train.
Yeah, it's funny because they played in their last series against Tempest Tracer Malfurion twice, and they had the opportunity to pick it up again. And one of those games was on BOE as well, with the first pick Genji in the exact same draft scenario, minus obviously the Uther ban. And they've changed priority here. Maybe they think it's still really strong. They want to save it for the grand finals later if they make it that far. But something in the minds of KSV Black has certainly changed.
For anybody wondering why is this Garrosh suddenly getting spiked up, the answer is Tyrael. He is one of the best heroes to be able to deal with the mobility that Tyrael provides. Have you ever wondered how easy it is to get a Sanctification into a Warlord's challenge? It's terrifying.
It's so hard.
It is very, very difficult to be able to deal with. Garrosh is a direct deterrent. So notice in both games, we see KSV ban out the Uther, let the Genji go through. They see the first pick into the Genji. That you can expect the Tyrael comes out. And then as long as they get themselves a Garrosh with not too heavy of a disadvantage, which conveniently in the last game, Ballistix banned out the Malthael for them. It is something that I think Ballistix, depending on how this game goes, they need to identify that this Garrosh priority adjustment with the removal of double invuln is heavily staggering their drafts.
It just feels like Genji is only as good as, or I should say not Genji.
Look at it, just ban.
Well, they're going to ban the Rhaegar again. I feel like Genji's Dragon Blade is only as good as how many times you can swing it. And if you don't have invulnerability with the Tyrael, if you don't have the Divine Shield to use it, Genji is essentially useless in team fights. He has some of the worst poke of a quote-unquote ranged assassin in the game. And they're, again, just going to make it tougher for Tyrael. Rhaegar could be used at least to protect Tyrael while he's stuck. Give him an Ancestral, then he can Sank. They don't have that either. And I feel like if you go down the Stukov path here for Ballistix, again, it's not going to be any help once more.
Now that we've got Uther Rhaegar banned out again, it opens up the door to the question of what do we see Magi play? The Stukov didn't look terrible, but we're talking about Battlefield of Eternity. We've seen, a very different structure towards playing against that, and I think a lot might have been able to be picked up upon from the Western Clash on how to deal with that. These teams watch the other regions. So what's your backup option? We've seen a Karazim be popular in Korea on this battleground, but you're looking at a Hanzo Genji. Who do you prioritize in healing? Is Tyrael enough of that supplementary secondary healer style with the shield?
I feel like if you want to go for a Karazim, you really need to pick an aggressive tank like an ETC or something and really try to dominate the early game, be very aggressive. Maybe even stage dive ETC could kind of be in your top lane soaking a little bit, but be aggressive in the very early game to try to get picks to be aggressive. I just don't think that Karazim is realistic here. I think they just have to pick Stukov for the healing he provides against sustained damage like Greymane, but again, it's just not going to be Dragon Blades that win them this game in team fights in most cases unless they can get those miracle Sanks.
There is very much a world where I think you can see a huge adjustment in this draft on Ballistix end where you go with more of like a Arthas Lucio. And you go with a Death Ball-y kind of melee composition to try and trade into. It's going to increase the probability of Genji gaining value with the Tyrael. It also
I like this idea, yeah.
I don't think it's perfect by any means, but we're already sitting here going, there has to be an adjustment, right? If it's not the Karazim, I think it has to be a Death Ball-y Lucio composition, and BOE accents that playstyle pretty well.
I really like the Lucio idea because, that's the only burst sort of support they have left for Genji, with Sound Barrier going to be able to potentially empower Dragon Blades. They go with Stukov, which is expected, not only because he's considered to be kind of the next tier of support right now, but it's what they did last game in the exact same scenario. But it's going to be really difficult because this comp doesn't offer a ton of early game pick potential. The Anub'arak gives you some, like we were talking about earlier with the ETC, but in regular straight up team fights, it's going to be tough, especially because they have Blaze now on the other side. Even if they have the perfect Dragon Blade, they have the perfect Sank, Blaze could just ruin everything by bunkering through it.
That's got to be a Rich Thrall.
I hope so.
Kicking it old school here.
Yeah.
So that's
the original Sunder right there, baby. Let's go.
Well, I almost wondered, would we get maybe a Li Ming, like a Rich Greymane and then a reset Li Ming, just kind of have that big back line, get the taunts, things like that, and maybe play around that. But the Thrall, obviously we've seen the priority on Battlefield of Eternity, building up that Crash Lightning, sustain through this, Stukov, good luck, and I think that's one of the things is you can get that safe poke without having to hard commit, and you can be more, I guess, choosy, more diplomatic about how you approach things. Like, do we want this? Do we not want this? And you have so many different options to choose whether you want to engage or not.
And I've been bringing up a lot on Battlefield of Eternity in this tournament, some interest and focus towards those side lanes, right? And even though they aren't the things that are winning the game for these teams, oftentimes they are the ones pulling ahead in information. And KSV right now seems to be the team, hands down, abusing their information that they have. You saw in the last game, anytime somebody showed off to the side, they pull the trigger, get the kill.
Yeah,
and so
5v4 it.
The Blaze, kind of disproportionate side lane that we see from KSV, I expect them to utilize that information really well here, find themselves a W.
I think so. You're going to have Blaze just kind of up there pushing the lane, and it's not even clear who will take that off lane role on the side of Ballistix. We seen a lot of Genji actually in the off lane. It is going to be the more traditional Tyrael, it looks like, at least for our level 1 beginning of this game. It's going to be a rough matchup up there, and whenever Ballistix goes to relieve that pressure in the top lane, that's when KSV Black is, like you say, going to make snap decisions. They're going to look for fights. They're going to look for neutral camps. So let's see how Ballistix makes this comp work, because I feel like their priority of the Genji when Uther is banned is just simply too high Dreadnought, and I think it's going to cost them big again in Game 2.
I agree. It's going to be very difficult, and I don't know. At this point, I want to just kind of see how it unfolds here for Ballistix. They still have a lot of the things that, you know, we kind of have known to come and expect from them. It's just with the major shift in priority of heroes and thought process from KSV and the level of performance that we saw from them not only yesterday, but so far here today, it just feels like, can anybody really kind of stop them? Because they've just been, it almost feels like they've just been sandbagging everybody for quite some time.
Yeah, well, this is obviously a frustrating matchup for Ballistix because they relieved Tyrael by sending Genji to the top, so they're threatening Blaze up there. But he's just sitting under cannon towers at the moment, whereas KSV Black has not only done damage to structures, but they're going to gain this camp. Ballistix has a lot of CC here, but they still can't contest this. This is not a fake that KSV Black is going to be scared by. So now they have even further pressure with these Impalers. Genji's come back down. But the kind of assassination mission or the pressure mission to the top for SDE, I have to feel like is a failure.
Yeah, it's one of those, you know, kind of moments that I'm trying to, when I was talking about the information advantage gained from KSV, right? These Impalers are not going to be a huge thing, and they won't be, like, it's not going to be game-changing, but you do enough decisions abusing the information on the map like that over and over again.
A game of baby steps, man.
And that's how KSV gets there, man. It's just take a little bit here, take a little bit there, and then when you look at what you've accumulated after 10 minutes, you're like, this is a whole level, guys.
Yeah.
Like, we have got this. It draws the resources here that provides more free control to the laning mismatch on the top half. It's just KSV does not let up whenever you make a mistake.
They really don't. They're just so good at understanding what a body on the map means, whether it's Genji trying to pressure the top lane or they've scouted a camp. And the Hanzo that they ran on the previous map made it even easier for them to have that information because they had Sonic Arrow. They don't have that this time. But they are going to make quick reactions based on what top lane is doing.
Kyocha, though, not going to get the jet propulsion out, gets the impale. There's no way he survives this. That is going to be one dead Blaze. First blood here for Ballistix. Timed pretty well.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're going to have the 15 seconds out from this Immortal. This camp actually was timed very early for KSV, and losing that member on top, I can't help but feel like this is Ballistix' moment to kind of, you know, grab this game.
Oh, absolutely. KSV Black also doesn't have anything they can do to counteract this. They couldn't try to like push a wall while that gank was happening. They couldn't try to find any other objectives on the map because the camp to the red side was too far away. They were already camping, so huge win here for Ballistix, but quick recovery for Black. They're getting on the Immortal first. It's a pretty competitive race at the moment. When halftime switches, though, you have to expect that KSV Black will be the aggressors.
Keep in mind, though, that time wing window, that was with Ballistix having a man up, and they lost the race. And that was purely because of rotational timing, decision-making onto the camp. This is, again, KSV just being there half a second too early, or at least earlier than you.
They're putting a lot of pressure on here, being the aggros, the aggressors here, as Reset is racing this down, as Thrall is grabbing stacks over and over and over here. Rich is just showing the power of this composition when everyone's clumped up like this, and they are destroying this race now, and also winning in trades, even against this Stukov, essentially 4v5. The top pressure in the lane is frustrating, but it's never going to accomplish as much as winning this Immortal is, so Ballistix needs to pull the trigger. I feel like they've held it too long.
Yeah, and they're going to lose the race. I expect KSV to make the transition to deal with that Shaman camp immediately. Kyocha, Reset, and, well, just actually Reset and Rich are going to be the members going up towards that top lane to be able to deal with that. Blaze off on that side soak. And this is just right now, things looking pretty good for KSV.
Okay, going to be a big engage here for Ballistix, trying to counter pressure after KSV committed an SDE. Looking for the pick on the Rich. Sake with the Moonfire coming through. SDE now super in trouble. The root is a double. SDE already used his deflect. He's going to have it in a second. Not the second fast enough, though. And now, as we said, look at what this has already done. More than the Shaman camp that was pressuring the top lane. I feel like Ballistix, this is something they could not give up if they wanted to stay competitive in this early game. We're talking about the level 10s they so desperately need with this comp to have first. Even if it's only for half a level, they need to have an experience lead if they have any hopes of winning team fights in this game.
Kind of trying to take a trade up here. Nice knock up there from Tis. Flips away Hooligan, says, I don't want that body block. Burrow charge goes in, cleanse out from Sake. Gets the clear there. Well, that was a stacking of Nature's Cure and Indomitable, but it's one of those moments where it's like he was far enough out to where it doesn't cost them anything at that point in time. And at this point, this is just now KSV. They're looking good. They've gotten that full level advantage. We talked about the struggles of the composition. By no means is this too detrimental. I think it's going to still struggle with the same problem of the second Immortal of the 10 problems, but it should be okay here for Ballistix as long as they do not lose anybody else or take any risky decision-making between this Immortal and the next. And the
Well,
lack of
uh-oh.
Yeah.
I mean, risky decisioning or risky positioning. SDE does survive throughout all of this. Great toss here to keep Reset alive. They are continuing to push this fight forward. Tist does get the heal here. They're going to steal this cap. Was very risky on both sides there. I feel like KSV Black really wanting that kill onto SDE, actually almost overextending. A bit sloppy on both sides, but crisp execution again. I feel like Garrosh on the side of KSV Black, Tist has really been delivering, and it's such a terrifying thing to face when the execution has been literally I see SC for 1 second and it's a double stun into a root.
Notice how nobody on the side of Ballistix, though, because that skirmish down below was in the top lane. And when now Tyrael has made his way towards top, doesn't have necessarily the best clear himself, and so KSV is getting the 5-man pressure. Normally, you would be looking at these type of situations, and you go, well, Ballistix is down, they need to be holding on, they need as much experience. But because they were willing to contest that shrine, they lost quite a bit experience, and they actually furthered this problem of the 10 in the secondary Immortal. If they had been less worried about an Impaler that is not going to get that much...
They literally would have come clear 1 second, basically, like KSV Black just did.
Yeah, realistically speaking, because they don't have wave clear, their decision-making and rotation has to be very, very fast, very, very efficient, and it's another case where not maybe getting as much as they would like. It's still not out of control yet, but the second Immortal might be.
I feel like trying to win a fight on the cap better executed would have been worth more than getting the cap itself.
Yes.
Because you're going to get kills, and then you're going to have lane control, you're going to have experience control, but just trying to fight for just securing the cap and risk losing members. Oh god, SDE again.
I don't know if he got
SC actually in this case.
I don't know if he got flipped into that ground broker or what, but either way, the follow-up stun into that Immortal is going to cost him his life. Nice jet propulsion. I mean, let's be real here. That bug just got squashed, flopped, tossed all kinds of around.
Now 10's up for KSV Black, and with a full level, so far, far, far before Ballistix will have 10, this Immortal phase will be over. This Immortal is going to be much more heavily shielded than the previous one. And Ballistix has a comp that, remember, Genji can't do much before Dragon Blade in terms of taking a straight-up 5v5. He doesn't have Uther at all. All he can rely on is going to be Sanctification, which isn't available yet. So KSV Black could really just open this map open wide. In fact, they might just go straight to try to invade camps right after this is finished. If they had any vision of where Hanzo was right now, they would definitely be looking to make that rotation. They don't. They don't know for sure. But they could try to make an aggressive play either at red side camp or the top.
Kyochi's positioning is going to indicate the thought process that KSV has with this objective very, very easily. He shows himself, not showing himself actually, but he is in the top lane kind of hovering around, then makes the transition down. They're going to want to make this Immortal get minimum keep. So now, if that is the thought process, nobody's showing on the top half. Ballistix needs to be very, very careful with this transition between the fort and their keep. Though Kyochi's not in position yet, you see the anchoring down below with Hooligan on that side. Does he go for the burrow charge over?
Looking for a flank on the socket before he has 13 potentially. No, looking actually for Rich. I don't think the best target he could have chosen here. SDE. Oh, this is some anti-synergy here with this Sanctification. KSV Black just kites back. Tist is low, but he's got so much armor.
That's Twilight Dream! The knock up the root all together, just bodying all the members of Ballistix, but nobody dies down. They have the heals. Can he get the reset?
Not quite. Tist has so much armor here. It's just close, but no cigar here for the Dragon Blade coming out for SDE. The near picks that he was almost able to get. And I mean, that was just disgusting what we saw.
Sake was just the dream for any Malfurion. A 4-man.
He was like, oh, you want to all stay in one place for the Sanctification? That's cute. Thank you for making this all the easier for me. And the Sank was disjointed with the Dragon Blade on top of it all.
It should be noted, though, that team fight hold-up, though. Burrow charge goes in onto reset. That's going to be a lot of damage. Greymane is out of here.
Good shove here from Magi, too.
Bunker's going to be able to keep them alive a bit.
They want more.
Yeah, they're going to try and get SDE a reset. Kyochi realizes the situation. They're not all going to make it out. Be the noble sacrifice.
Be that sacrifice, Hero League players. Sometimes sometimes it's best to take one for the team. But look, they walk away with a keep. The top pressure is really negligible in comparison. It's kind of an annoyance for KSV Black. It's like, oh god, somebody's going to clear that. Rich, can you go deal with that? We overextended. But I think the problems of the comp for Ballistix have really just been highlighted here. Malfurion, not only in this game, in the previous game, so powerful against Sanctification because they do kind of set you up for that type of group up there when the Sank goes down for a big silence. And the Dragon Blade just it feels like it's almost enough, but it's just never enough, and you can't swing as much as you'd like to. You can't hit those targets because you have to play more safely because you don't have that Divine Shield. Sank was already used, and you're kind of flailing around hoping for the best, hoping KSV Black makes a mistake. But KSV Black's disengage was beautiful. They all stepped away during the Sank, kited back, and then Twilight Dream comes in, stun comes in, very well executed.
It will, I still kind of, want to believe in Ballistix having at least an opportunity to get an even team fight and hold their own in it, because that fight also was, we talked about the burrow charge opportunity, the time's there. He's still got Eldruins, but if you get stun locked to death, not going to be able to get the follow-up there. Nice pick-off and crowd control chain from KSV. But what I was saying was, the Sundering opened very early. It was actually overly optimistic from KSV, and that's why we saw the burrow charge a bit early, and we were like, oh, why on Rich? It's because it was a bad Sunder, or at least not optimal Sunder. And they were trying to punish that, but sometimes when, the counter-punishment and the anti-synergy isn't there, it gets really hairy. So
yeah, I mean, Rich is obviously a target who's not going to die easily on Thrall, and he's going to have to self-sustain. So, it's a thing that if it worked out better, we'd probably be singing the praises of this move. But when it happens this well and KSV Black handles it so well, it does look foolish, I guess, from the outside looking in. Well, with the pick onto Jungha, this delays Ballistix' potential to contest this. So, free halftime here for KSV Black. And they've won every Immortal fight handily so far. So, Ballistix needs to do something different this time. What that's going to be is difficult to say. I feel like Jungha needs to set up a Sank for the Dragon Blade to come into realistically here. And it's easier said than done with this composition they're up against.
There's a super wave building down below as well. Double catapult's in a perfect position to be a tri-catapult, and that's when you really start seeing damage onto the core. So that was really good lane and minion map manipulation from KSV. It's going to get a new Barak to kind of show himself down below. Not giving that information over yet, but you can see him second guessing, where am I going to go?
You can see Ballistix flailing around here. They know that their best fight is one where KSV comes to them, but oh boy, this is looking really bad. The silence coming through here as well. Dragon Blade just, again,
that's
not really...
4 heroics from KSV, and they haven't gotten a kill. Sanctification, though, not going to connect in the way that you necessarily want. Jungha still moving forward. Big groundbreaker there from Tis. Bunker's going to drop. We're going in. We're going out. KSV here find themselves the very first kill. That throwback is going to find the second
This looks
one.
like a game over here, man. It's just too many picks already. Ballistix, you could see their thought process of, well, they have to come to us if we're going to win the fight. And KSV Black just, again, plays so patiently. They don't do what Ballistix wants them to do. Grab here on the Magi. That's a third kill. 3 catapults, like you mentioned.
It's
Try
so
directly on the core.
Pretty how they set up this bottom lane. I cannot describe how well the decision-making and the minion control and then into the initiation of the fight. All it takes is 2 kills, and only because that lane is prepped as brilliantly as it is, it's GG, 2-0 here, KSV.
Every aspect, man. If you had one of those pentagons that shows, the strength of the team, where it's like we've had these graphics in the past, it's like teamwork, macro, team fighting, things like that. The macro side and the team fighting side here for KSV Black at max level. The prep on the wave, the patience, again, not kind of falling into the traps Ballistix was setting up. I feel like a weaker team in that moment where Ballistix was hiding on their own Immortal, just playing defensively, would have just been like, we're ahead, let's go fight this. And then Ballistix might have been able to get Sank value, Dragon Blade value. KSV Black just steps back again. And I feel like if they don't change their drafting away from the Genji, there's no coming back in this series. The Genji just simply has not been working for them against the execution of KSV.
I don't think it's as simple as just a Genji, but I agree. It hinges on a Genji, but more importantly, a burst healer pairing. You can't just blind faith in the material of the Genji, because when Genji is Dragon Blading, he's almost never in a singular spot. He wants to be Dragon Blading forward, using the mobility in that. And Sanctification is going to be territorial. Rhaegar and Uther are the only 2 that enable you to effectively get all of those swings you're talking about. So somebody has to make sure if you're going to high commit to Genji, you get yourself a Rhaegar or Uther.
And that's why they're banning the Uther every time.
Hello, Jay
Wolf.
Hey, what's up?
How you doing, buddy?
Welcome back, man.
Thank you. I actually wanted to bring up a point you guys were talking about. Oftentimes we show up day 1, you just kind of carry on whatever meta you ended up with in the season, and then you just kind of move forward day 2. Things start to change a little bit. KSV has been changing it up. The early Garrosh, the kind of adaptation that we've seen to kind of counter this. They were kind of behind in the meta in the early part, which is why they came in as the 3 seed, but it seems like they're starting with the role swaps, maybe kind of changing that dynamic as we head in here on the last day.
Yeah, I think that very much is the case. A lot of this is going to be a draft problem. I mean, Ballistix is not playing bad, right? These fights are still very clean on their
So
end.
close.
They're showing that they're just so very close. But with how much thought and creativity we see from KSV, and then the control that they still have within these games, that all of this is going to start with where
It
after
feels
the
like a hero. It feels like a hero pool problem, really. And the priority of the Genji, the Hanzo, it's really hurting them. They're forcing these heroes with somewhat of an anti-synergy in the draft to come in, but with no way to use them properly.
Well, Ballistix has the championship medal. We're going to see if they can turn things around going into Game 3. But before we get to there, we're going to send it over to a quick commercial break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with the conclusion of this winner bracket final. Welcome back here to the HGC Eastern Clash as we've got KSV Black versus Ballistix to start the day. And so far, KSV Black up 2-0. Again, the team fights and everything that we've seen thus far have been close, but for the most part, it's the dominance on the side of KSV Black.
Yeah, I just feel like Ballistix is putting too much priority on the Genji, and I know I sound like a broken record for this, but when the Uther is banned, I feel like you just can't get as much out of the Genji. And even still, they're so close to making some of these fights work, but KSV Black has been really good at understanding vision. Their Garrosh play has been terrifying, and whenever you see a series like this, when suddenly one team you're worried about, like, okay, their Garrosh is really good, their Malfurion is really good, and you're starting to think about, well, I have to ban my
really
Ev.
good.
You're like, well, I don't know, this feels like a lost series, right? I can't ban Garrosh instead of my Ev because we know that Rich can play my Ev, and so you